Now, members of the United States National Guard arrived at the D.C. Armory on Tuesday, just a day after President Trump announced deployment of 800 National Guard troops to Washington and temporarily taking over the city's police department. Now, in addition, Trump will be sending about 500 federal law enforcement agents to supplement the city's police force during the 30-day emergency deployment. Rabindra Chauhan gets us more details about this. Take a look.
Protests erupted on the streets of Washington D.C. as National Guards took control of the city's streets following U.S. President Donald Trump's order to take over the city police. Trump's announcement to deploy National Guard troops in Washington has sparked public uproar, drawing global attention and reigniting debate over federal control of the capital. Protesters took to the streets following Trump's executive order, calling the move of federal control of police authoritarian and unnecessary.
Growing up in Washington, D.C., it's very hard to see this city being captured by Donald Trump and making everybody live in fear. I don't approve of it. I just think it's a bad move.
Trump deployed 800 National Guard troops and placed Washington, D.C.'s police under temporary federal control, citing a surge in violent crime despite federal data showing major declines.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that.
Trump's move comes in the context of a report which says that violent crime spiked in 2023, making D.C. one of the nation's most dangerous cities at the time. But in 2024, violent crime dropped 35%, and it's down another 26% so far in 2025. According to official data. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser pushed back, arguing there is no current crime emergency, calling Trump's actions more political than practical. The president also increased the FBI's presence and signed an executive order to make D.C. safe and beautiful, including a controversial effort to clear homeless encampments from federal lands.
I think the new executive order is geared towards picking up homeless people in the streets that are actively doing drugs and taking them into some sort of detention center where they can start the rehab process. I'm not sure how effective that's going to be, but apparently it sounds like police are going to start coming out into the streets and detaining people.
Under the U.S. Constitution, only Congress has full legislative authority over Washington, D.C. The Home Rule Act of 1973 grants the city limited self-governance, allowing residents to elect a mayor and a council. However, Congress still controls the city's budget and can overturn local laws as it did in 2023. While Trump's move has legal backing for a temporary federal intervention, a full takeover would require congressional approval, something unlikely with strong Democratic opposition. Bureau Report, DD India.
And it's not only about the National Guards, but there are other pillars which are impacting the USA as well because of the decisional process. Let's take a look at those pillars, which are they and how are they impacting the USA itself. To begin with the National Guard troops that has started gathering in the US, well, Trump's Washington D.C. takeover begins as National Guard troops. They gather in the U.S. Capitol, whereas the Washington Mayor Bowser says deployment will be used to drive down crime. But on the other hand, Democrats, they criticize the deployment as a political theater. Moving on, there is another pillar, which is the tariff. So Trump tariff impact on the U.S., if you take a look at it, it has already hit the U.S. itself, with U.S. prices continuing to rise in the month of July. And not only this, reports also suggest inflation that can be triggered in the USA. And apart from that, tariffs are also hitting household budgets in America. And further, they can also push the dollar closer to a trust crisis. Another very important pillar, another very important decision of Donald Trump, which is impacting the US people themselves, is the homelessness plan. Now, Trump wants the homeless out of Washington, but the advocates who are advocating in favor of homeless people, they say that this is not the way to solve homelessness problem in the capital. Moving on, let's also talk about immigration raids. Trump has intensified the deportation efforts regarding the immigrants. But Priest and Migrants Home Director says that people working in the fields are not criminals. And the crime rate is also going down. We just saw that in the report. Moving on, let's also talk about the Fed chair, because lawsuit against Fed chair is what Trump has been planning, and it has a repercussion. The dollar has already weakened on Wednesday because of this particular thing. Now, and apart from that, Trump wants the Fed chair to be moved according to him. And to give you a rounded perspective on this, I'm joined by our expert, Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, who's a former senior diplomat. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for joining us right now. Now, taking a look at the overall picture and the statements made by the people of the United States themselves. First, to begin with the National Guard troop deployment, considering the report that violent crimes actually are declining. How do you see this move of Donald Trump when the critics cry it out as a political overreach tactic?
Yeah, thank you very much, Deepika, for having me. You're very right. I think it has really, the US society is polarized between the Republicans and the Democrats. And this will further fuel the fires. This will further polarize the system. And that is what the opponents of Donald Trump seem to be suggesting, that, what he has said is that it is violence, it is violent gangs who are ruling the streets of Washington, D.C. Also, it is homelessness. But this is not the way to go about it, because he has not presented any plan in terms of how to deal with the homeless people. Meaning, if they are shifted from Washington, D.C. to some other place, then it is going to transfer that problem to some of the other stations. Now, there are a large number of NGOs who have been working in Washington, D.C. I remember when we were there, homelessness is not a new problem. Washington has always, and many other cities, big cities, metropolitan cities in the United States have suffered from that. This is not the way to deal with it. So that is what the opponents of Donald Trump and the Democrats seem to be suggesting, that it's a political move. He wants to move against the Democrats. So neither the violence of the violent gangs or homelessness issue is going to be resolved by this. The mayor of Washington, D.C. has said that there was a rise in crimes, violent crimes after COVID-19, but over the last few years, more than 30% decrease in violence has taken place, and they are well on way to controlling this. So it appears both to the supporters as well as definitely to the opponents of Donald Trump that this is a political move and it is not going to have much of an impact on the ground.
That's true. And also discussing the USA without discussing tariffs is not justifiable. And interestingly, not only tariffs are impacting the respective countries, but it has a certain amount of serious impact on the US itself, as the reports are saying. Why Donald Trump still wants to continue with the tariff saga, and especially at the cost of his country's own economy?
Yeah, I mean, that is a $1 million question, if not more so, because, even when he was putting in his practice of tariffs on around the world, not only on his adversaries, but even more so on his partners, whether they are neighbors, Mexico, Canada, whether it is the European Union, whether it's on India, which is the highest tariffs of 50% that he has imposed. All his economists, they had, and all the other public policy experts had suggested that this raising of tariffs is going to introduce inflation as far as the United States is concerned, as far as the country is concerned. It is going to make living much more expensive. And it has taken a little time because so far the tariffs have not been put in place. They have, the Liberation Day tariffs of 2nd April, they were supposed to kick in 9th April, but then they were given 3 months reprieve, 9th July. So, there have been sort of some postponements. But now we are feeling the impact. And as you showed very correctly, Deepika, in your report, that from July onwards, the prices have started going up, inflation has started going up. And also in this period of uncertainty, investments in the United States will also, the investors will hold back. They will not come forward for investment. So this is going to have an impact on job creation, new job creation. And I'm sure that is going to demonstrate itself in the new reports on the economy that are going to come forward. But Mr. Trump is he's weaponizing the tariffs. He thinks that is the panacea for all ills and evils that the United States is facing. But I think that's a very misplaced assessment, and the results are going to be out very soon, and they will reflect them in the midterm polls that are going to take place in November next year.
Definitely. Let's also talk about the ongoing geopolitical tensions. Trump is all set to meet Vladimir Putin, and also when we talk about it, land swap is on the agenda. But Zelensky believes if he is not involved, then no peace talk will be considered as a fair move. And Trump has also said that he'll consider talking to him. Now, for every move aimed at making peace, why is Donald Trump always proposing a business deal? Because many critics say that all decisions are driven by Trump's primary nature of being a businessman.
Yeah, basically, I think that is what he looks upon his role as the CEO of a company. And so, he is looking at everything as a business deal. So I think this is going to be the way that he is looking at all his dealings, whether it is Ukraine or his relationships with other countries are concerned. And even as far as his meeting with Mr. Putin is concerned, again, it is a swap that he wants to make, land swap, meaning what Ukraine will be able to retain, because there is nothing very confirmed or definite as to what is happening. But it appears that Mr. Trump is quite determined that as far as Crimea is concerned and the 4 eastern provinces of Ukraine are concerned, that they will be handed over to Russia. But this is not acceptable to Ukraine at all. So what is going to be the final outcome of these negotiations? The Europeans also, 26 out of the 27 countries have said that Ukraine and Europe needs to be represented at those talks that Trump is having with Putin. But we'll really have to wait and see. He has been desperate to get some sort of maybe a temporary ceasefire also, because unfortunately he is really looking only at his Nobel Peace Prize. And that is, he wants to work some sort of understanding, some sort of a rapprochement, some sort of a ceasefire where he can sort of, claim that he has been instrumental. He is the peace president of the United States.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and bringing us a rounded perspective on the current state of the United States. Moving on, in a historic achievement, India has lifted over 20